It's the Daylight Midnight Show. Nah, let's stick with the old one. It's the Daylight Midnight Show. Hello and welcome. It's another dull, very dreary day, I'm afraid, so I hope you can see me well through the harshness of a British winter. That leads me straight into our slogan for the week, which is good news if, like me, you're not a big fan of the winter months. Feb is on its way. It kind of struck me yesterday when I was sending an email to someone that we're heading into the last week of January. So all of a sudden, by distracting myself by, being abroad and struggling to get back from abroad and then getting on with this show and getting back into general life and catching up with people, that January is pretty much done. We're 3/4 of the way through. And we are heading very quickly towards the spring months. So there we go. Our theme for the week, Feb is on the way. Let's rejoice about that. Let's do our fascinating fact for a Friday that is still being called a fascinating fact for a Friday, even though last week I worked out that no one actually hears it on a Friday. So this is just something I have learnt, in today's case, within the last hour, that I really like and I thought I would share with you. So here you go. This week's fascinating fun fact for a Friday. If you are born in Monaco, you are called a monegasque. So if you're born in England, you're English. If you're born in Monaco, you're monegasque. And I just think it is a lovely word written down and a fun word to say and an interesting fact. There we are. So let's do my week in 10 words then. Which again, I want to write something for this, like a little theme on the guitar. So anyway, that's something to put on my list for next week. So my week in 10 words. What I've been up to in the past 7 days. Afternoon tea, 40th birthday party, jigsaw, welcome walk, interesting meeting. So which of these shall I talk about a bit more? The afternoon tea was quite an experience. It's become a huge thing recently, hasn't it? A lot of different places, hotels and restaurants offer afternoon tea experiences. And I've kind of thought, it's people of my kind of class trying to be posh, is what I've always thought. But actually it was really enjoyable, I have to say. There was about 20 of us. And I noticed what I liked about it is the fact that about 40% of what you're given is cake. So you've got a little tray of sandwiches, maybe a sausage roll, and the rest of it is dessert, which is wonderful for those of us that like sugar. 40th birthday party, lovely family affair. The jigsaw. Now this has surprised me how much I'm enjoying jigsaws. I don't know if it's a winter thing because there's not much else to do. I don't know if it's an age thing. I remember I did care work for a while and I used to go and see a gentleman, retired gentleman, every other week for about 2 or 3 hours so his wife could go out and have some time for herself. And one of the things we used to do is we'd sit and do a jigsaw and we'd just have a chat about the amazing things that he'd done in his life. And I really got into it because obviously care work can be quite stressful. There's a lot to think about. You're rushing from one client to another. And I found that doing this jigsaw, it's very meditative because you just have to sit there and concentrate on what you're doing with that one piece and finding where it fits in, and all other thoughts have to go away. It's very much like mountain climbing in that, where you've got to just get the next grip right. Have I just compared jigsaws to mountain climbing? In their own way, I suppose. And the other lovely thing about the jigsaw last weekend was it was an intergenerational thing within my family. We had 3 generations. My mum, myself and my son completed this jigsaw together. Took most of Sunday morning. And I just thought it's lovely. There's someone, will my mum mind me saying, in her late 70s, me in my mid-50s, my son late teens, and it was an activity we could all do together, which was great. And, my back isn't great. I think I've mentioned this before. My spine is about as much use as an inflatable Ferris wheel. So the list of things physically that I can do is getting sort of shorter and shorter by the year. So just being able to do a jigsaw on a table, although I have to be honest, bending over the table a lot, I did have to keep laying down for a rest, which is a terrible indictment of my physical state, isn't it? The welcome walk was, I've got a very close friend who's been through a real life-changing event recently. And it was great to meet up and see how she's doing, and she's doing remarkably well. So that was wonderful. And interesting meeting seems to be a weekly thing at the moment. And it's something that happens with my line of work and the kind of thing I do for a living. This happens a lot. You have meetings and auditions and all sorts of things that happen, and they always say, this is wonderful, we're going to do lots of good stuff together. And you learn as you get older that you've got to take that with a real grain of salt. So I would say something like 98% of these meetings lead nowhere. And of the ones that do lead somewhere, 98% of those don't go in the direction you want them to. So you've just got to cling on for those little bits in the middle where you get to do something that you really enjoy. So we'll wait and see what happens with that one. But it was an interesting meeting rather than just a chat. So we'll see what happens. On to the purple card then, which of course now is a yellow card at the moment because I ran out of purple cards and has its own theme song. You see what's on my top half, but not what I'm wearing below. Let's see what I've written on the card that's yellow. That was dreadful. So the yellow card then, where I just write little things down, little thoughts and things that happen during the week so I can discuss them with you. Point number 1 this week, waffling wildly sounds like a new extreme sport. Last week, I think I did waffle on a bit and get a bit carried away. And so I gave the show the title, something about waffling wildly. And thanks to Matthew for getting in contact and saying, you've made it sound like an extreme sport that we could do. We could go out and like climb trees and then make waffles at the top. So that might be something we'll look into for the future. Although what I've just said about my back being bad probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to go skiing while eating waffles. Point number 2, simple animation for Gordon Grape. Yeah, when I do the interactive Greg and Nori story, I'm not going to recap the whole thing every week, but when I do read the whole thing, because it's getting quite long now, I think I'm going to have something to break it up with some animation. So you're not just hearing my voice, you'll actually see some kind of clips. It might even be me just drawing stuff down on bits of paper and holding them up, but that's something I want to do in the near future, and we'll get to Gordon Grape in a moment. And my final point is awful taste. Yeah. I've said before, I like trying new things, and with food I like putting things together that I haven't tried before just to see what they're like. I think this is how the magic can happen in a kitchen. So this week I bought a pot of, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was yoghurt that isn't really yoghurt, because yoghurt, as I'm sure you know, is quite dairy full. And this was a dairy-free yoghurt made with some kind of soya protein, but claiming to taste exactly like yoghurt. So I gave it a go, and it was just awful. In taste, in texture, and in overall experience, one of the worst things I've ever put in my mouth. So it did provoke me, to think about doing a taste special, my favourite and least favourite tastes. So I might do that next week, is give you a list of like my favourite individual tastes. Not like, you know, a strong lasagna, but, you know, garlic or coconut in my case. And I need to think about this and look at it carefully, because I've got a memory of doing something similar before on a past show. I think I can remember me holding up bits of card or paper with ginger and coconut on, but it might have been something else. It might have been when I was talking about my favourite taste combinations or my favourite words. So I will double check that because I don't want to repeat myself. Although, having said that, it was probably a couple of years ago, so my taste buds might have changed, so it might be a different list, and it will update you on how I'm feeling nowadays. So I might do that next week. So let's get on to interactive Greg and Nori then. I've decided we've got as far as chapter 6. I would like this story to finish at chapter 10. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you again because it goes on too long, but you can listen to last week's show to get the story so far. And this week I heard from Weird Alvin again, who wrote last week's chapter. Is there a rule that says the same person can't write 2 chapters? I didn't mean to make it sound as racy as I did. Please let me try again. At the end of last week's show, I said I felt like it was going in a direction that maybe I wouldn't want it to. So Alvin has readjusted the story back to the way it should have gone. So the recap so far, Gordon Grape has been blown away from his home, Vine, in a storm. He's landed in a strange land he's never been to before, and he's made friends with a peach and a red delicious apple. So this is chapter 6, written once again by Weird Alvin. The new group of friends were determined to work together to find a way back to their own homes. But then Gordon said, here's a crazy idea. Why don't we try to make a new life for ourselves here? And that's what they all agreed to do. So the floor is now open for you to come up with chapter 7. Please send it to me at the email address you'll get at the end of the show. And we've only got 4 chapters left before we end this story completely. So we need to be sort of heading towards what the end of the story is going to be. So let's work out what I'm going to wear next week by doing the... I've just realised I've been playing with this and it isn't complete. So I'll throw it in the air and then we'll go with whatever the central square is, because that's the one you can't influence at all. Determining what I'm going to be wearing next week, we use the randomness of the rolling, rotating cube. And then we ally that with the Outfit Roulette motherboard. So that is green in the centre. So next week I will be wearing nothing. Over the top of that, I will be wearing whatever is in column purple, which is a dressing gown. And to accessorise all that, we'll have whatever is in column yellow. And that will be sunglasses. So nothing underneath, a dressing gown over the top, and a pair of sunglasses. Will my hair be up or down? Let's do the Crynal coin toss. There we go. And that has landed this week on heads. So my hair will be down. I'm just going to double check because I feel like we've gone through this really quickly. But that's probably not a bad thing after last week because I know I overrun. So we'll leave it there and I will wish you all the very best. Have a great 7 days. No, hang on. Have a great week. Hang on. I've forgotten the end of my own show. I'll see you next week. Have a great 7 days. There we are, we got there in the end.